Hey guys, John Crisp here. I wanted to comment on this proposed FAA regulation remote ID issue. The proposal basically is going to limit the hobby and kill it, in my opinion, of radio control, unmanned aerial systems, or drones. And I'm going to provide what I commented on. I'm just going to read it right off my iPad. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I wanted to give you what my response was. And I'll put the comments, you have to limit it to 5,000 characters. And I followed a template that the EAA provided. So I'm going to put those comments that I submitted in the comment section of this video. And basically I think it's a bad idea. That's really kind of the summary. If you don't watch anything else, I don't like it. I think it's Big Brother. I think it's going to kill the RC hobby. It's already struggling. And so that's really kind of my commentary. I'll give you the full details here in a minute if you want to watch after the bumper. Hey YouTube, thanks for sticking around. It is February 22nd, and this is my reply to the FAA regarding remote ID. Regarding remote ID, don't burden a system that has been in place and working within the airspace of the United States since the inception of radio control flying. I've been an RC aircraft modeler for over 40 years and a licensed pilot since 1987. I see no reason that the proliferation of unmanned aerial systems or drones and a handful of uneducated and uninformed pilots are creating a need for overburdensome regulation that will force traditional model aircraft to go out of business. In the industry, that is. Something I don't see mentioned much is model rockets. Are we going to have to put remote ID systems on model rockets? They've also existed in this ecosystem with no problem for years. This is insanity and government regulation at its worst, in my opinion. Why have freedoms to participate in these hobbies for decades now be saddled with unnecessary requirements? What's driving this need now? There are many unintended consequences of any legislation, and I'm sure others will post their opinions on this. For me, it's the loss of the radio control hobby. It's supported by smaller mom and pop companies, and I'm sure, as with anything, there are exceptions to that. Many of these companies are small with limited markets, and those markets are shrinking. And they will most likely not survive additional regulation. On top of that, aviation is a pathway to high-paying careers, technical jobs, and putting these at risk seems irresponsible and unnecessary. I'm an AMA, AOPA, and EAA member, and these organizations exist to educate the public, act as a lobby for the communities that they support, and there's much overlap between the two. A lot of guys like myself fly radio control, fly full-size airplanes. These parties are actively involved in this discussion, and their voices must be considered. If this is a move to drive federal revenue, it's a foregone conclusion then, and that would be a shame. Why would we have legislation that limit these hobbies in the interest of the lobbies of airlines and larger commercial operators like Amazon that have for years been able to exist in this same ecosystem? Use cases for UAS or drones don't translate to a traditional model aircraft ecosystem, and restricting operations to AMA-sanctioned fields don't translate either. If I want to operate my drone on vacation for a sunset video or an aerial view, I can't do that at a sanctioned RC field. There's got to be a balance. 400-foot altitude and visual line of sight should be sufficient within the current airspace regulations. It seems counterintuitive that ultralights can operate without a private pilot certificate, yet drones and traditional model aircraft would be burdened by remote ID. It just makes no sense. Having a 400-foot limit from the operator by default, which is what's being proposed, will eliminate almost all of my current fleet of model aircraft, and it's a way to restrict that just doesn't make sense. Traditional model aircraft shouldn't have to have geofencing or remote ID. Designated part flyer fields and sanctioned fields would need to be larger than 400-foot limit being proposed. And I'm talking about horizontal, not vertical. If modelers have to notify the FAA before flying, this will also be burdensome. I don't have to notify the FAA to operate my experimental aircraft in day VFR local conditions. It's going to create unnecessary amount of wasted time and paperwork, and who's going to do this? If there's some form of notification required, why not something similar to the low altitude authorization and notification capability of the LAANC system already in use by the FAA for approving UAS flight in certain areas? We can't regulate our way into common sense. There must be defined use cases that allow for all parties to have a degree of freedom and safety that's existed for decades without a problem. The FAA recognized identification areas are also cumbersome. Why not have general use airspace as we have had all along for day VFR operations? Model aircraft fields move or get created. They should be able to continue as they always have, in harmony. And the use case of flying UAS on vacation makes this a non-starter. Regarding registering every model, I have registered already. I'm in the database. I have over 100 model aircraft and helicopters. It makes no sense to have to register every single one. I should be able to use my ID for all of my models, as my driver's license lets me drive any car, as my pilot's license lets me fly any aircraft I'm certified to fly. Finally, privacy. Broadcasting publicly my location and equipment is too big brother in my opinion. Theft, harassment by an uneducated public. The list goes on as to why it's a bad idea. Somebody can see where I'm flying, come rob me, and take my high-end drone, for example. Why not reverse this point of view? Geofence areas that are not approved fly areas, if you want to limit traditional model aircraft and UAS within 5 miles of controlled airspace, then block that airspace with denial of flight technology that's already in existence. Or have an operation in that bubble if you're operating under 400 feet. Make that be a requirement and be approved. There has to be less restrictive options for these use cases. And if this is still available to emergency responders or police or the FAA, that's one thing. But to the general public to have access to where I'm flying and what I'm doing, that's none of their business. I get it. Common sense is not common at all at any level, unfortunately. Take a few minutes, listen to the community, apply some history lessons and common sense, and then do the right thing. Don't kill these hobbies needlessly. We'll be a poorer country for it. We've lost many freedoms since 9/11. Don't add this to the growing list. So that's my comments, and thanks for watching. I urge you to get into the comment section of this video, copy the links, go to the website, put your own opinions in there, be civil. But take the information here and use that as a template. That was really the whole purpose for me posting this video. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch.